Hey, what's going on, guys? Brian from Zombie Guitar here. In this lesson I want to talk about diatonic chord progressions. Okay, I know I have a lot of lessons on this site that talk about, adding out-of-key chords into diatonic chord progressions, or adding non-diatonic chords into chord progressions, or anything of that nature. In order to fully understand what that means, in case you don't already, you first want to understand what a diatonic chord progression is. In other words, what does it mean if you play a chord progression in which all of the chords are completely in the key, okay? Nothing is out of the key, everything that you play is completely part of the key, okay? So that's what I'm going to talk about in this lesson. First, we're going to take a look at diatonic triads for a key, and then we're going to take a look at the diatonic 7th chords that are created for a particular key. Okay, so with that said, let's get started. Okay, so there's 12 possible keys in music. Alright, there's only 12 keys. If you take a look at the circle of fifths, the outer circle represents the each of the 12 keys from the major perspective. If you look at the inner circle, okay, that represents each of the 12 possible keys from the minor perspective. Okay, so the circle of fifths has everything in a major and minor pair, essentially. Okay, now what I mean by a key is it contains a unique set of 7 notes. So the key of C major, for example, contains the notes C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. No sharps, no flats. If you start on the note C on the piano, and then you play only white keys, and you end on the next higher C, okay, no black keys at all, well, that's the C major scale. If you play only those notes, you're said to be in the key of C major, okay? You can also look at that from the perspective of its relative minor. Okay, so the relative minor contains the exact same notes of whatever key you happen to be in, okay? So A minor is the relative minor of C major. Okay, only the notes are arranged slightly differently, but they're still the same notes. Okay, so those notes would be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then back at the A. Okay, again, looking at the piano, you could start on the note A, play only white notes, ending up on the next A up, and you would have just played the A minor scale. Okay, so every key in music has its own unique 7-note set. Okay. If you then move on to the next key on the circle of fifths in the clockwise direction, you would be at G major, which has a relative minor E minor. Okay, that has its own unique set of 7 notes, which are G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp. Okay, so that has 1 sharp in that particular key. So if you play only those notes, only those 7 notes, you don't play anything else additional, well, you're in the key of either G major or E minor, depending on what perspective you're looking at it, either the major perspective or the minor perspective. Okay, so that's what it means to be in a key. All right, so each of the 12 keys has its own unique set or grouping of 7 notes. Now, you can take a look at any one of those 12 keys. You can take the 7 notes from those from that particular key, and you can then create 7 diatonic chords, and that's what this lesson is about. So let's take the key of C major, for example, because that's the easiest key to explain music theory in. The notes of C major are C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. Okay, and then your C major scale played on the guitar sounds like this: C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Alright, 7 notes there. Now, you can take any one of those 7 notes and create a chord diatonic to the key of C major by using only notes of the key of C major. No sharps, no flats. If there is a chord that has a sharp or flat in it, well, it's therefore a non-diatonic chord or an out-of-key chord. Alright? So you can create some sort of a C chord, some sort of a D chord, some sort of an E chord, some sort of an F chord, and so on. Alright, so how do you do that? Basically, whatever chord you're creating is you start on that particular scale degree and then you count every other note. And then by doing that, that is going to give you your chord. So starting on the first degree, which is C, you can take C and then count every other note until you have 3 notes. C, skip a note, E, skip a note, G. C, E, G. That's your first chord, okay? That's also known as your 1 chord. You can then do the same thing starting on the second scale degree. D, okay? So D, skip a note, F, skip a note, A. Alright, so that's your 2 chord for this particular key. The 3 chord, start on the third scale degree, which is E, E, skip a note, G, skip a note, B. That's your that's your 3 chord for this key. Okay, then your 4 chord, start on the 4th scale degree, F, skip a note, A, okay, skip a note, and then it's one continuous loop, okay? So you're still going to skip a note every time, even when you start the loop over. So it's F, A, skip the B, then you're at the C, okay? So F, A, C, that's your 4 chord. Your 5 chord, okay, you're going to start on the G, okay? G, skip a note, B, starting back over, skip a note, D, G, B, D, okay? That's your 5 chord. 6 chord, starting on the A, you have A, C, E. Your 7 chord, starting on the B, you have B, D, F. Okay, those are your 7 diatonic triads for the key of C major. Okay, now taking a look deeper into what these triads are they major or are they minor? Okay, so basically the way you figure that out is you look at the intervals between the notes. Alright, so let's take the 1 chord for example, the C, E, and G. C, E, and G, in order to determine if it's a major quality or minor quality, you want to look at the interval between the first and the second note of the chord, okay? Otherwise known as the root of the chord and the third of the chord, okay? Chords go root, 3, 5, root, third, fifth, okay? So the C is the root, the E is the third, the G is the fifth of that particular chord. The interval between the C and the E is, here's your C, okay, C on the A string, 3rd fret, and then your E is on the 7th fret of the A string, okay? So that is 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so anytime you're separated by that type of interval, where you start on the original note, which is C, and then you go 1, 2, 3, 4, that's known as a major third interval. Major third interval. Okay, a major third interval is 4 half steps higher than the original note. Okay, so C, 4 half steps higher, which is E, that's a major third interval. Okay, and then you want to look at the interval between the first note and the G. Okay, so the interval between the C and the G, okay, that is known as a perfect fifth. And perfect fifths, you can tell on the guitar if you look at the C right here on the A string, 3rd fret, and then the perfect fifth will always be located on the E string on the same fret. Okay, so here's your C, 3rd fret A string, here's your G, 3rd fret E string. So C, G. Or you can look at it, the fifth is always located on the next higher string and then 2 frets up. So C is here on the 3rd fret A string, and then the fifth is located on the next string up and then 2 frets higher. There's your fifth on the D string. C, G, okay? So this particular chord has an interval of a major third between the C and the E, and it has the interval of a perfect fifth between the C and the G. Okay, so root, major third, perfect fifth, that particular chord formula is a major chord. Alright, so C, E, G is a C major chord. Alright, now let's take a look at the second chord, the 2 chord, D, F, A. Okay, so if you start on your note D, which is right here on the 5th fret of the A string, okay, and then you want to look at the interval between the D and the F, Okay, the F, the next closest F is here. 1, 2, 3 frets up. Okay, F is right here. 8th fret A string. D, 1, 2, 3, F. Okay, that's 3 half steps away, not 4 half steps away, 3 half steps away. That particular interval is known as a minor third. All right, so the quality of this particular chord is of the minor quality because the third is a minor third away, or 3 half steps away. So a major third is 4 half steps higher, a minor third is 3 half steps higher. Okay, so D, F, which is a minor third away. Then let's look at the interval between the D and the A. All right, so between the D and the A, okay, the A is on the E string but on the same fret, again indicating that this is the interval of a perfect fifth away. Okay, or you can do it the other way. You can start on the D, 5th fret A string, go to the next string higher, and then 2 frets higher. Again, you will find your A, indicating that the interval between the D and the A is a perfect fifth. Okay, so when you have a root and then a minor third interval and then a perfect fifth interval, that would be a minor chord. That's the chord formula for a minor chord. Okay, so the 1 chord is a major chord, the 2 chord is a minor chord. Okay, so let's take a look at the 3 chord. I'm going to move a little quicker now. So the 3 chord, start on your note E. Okay, or you can start on your open string down here. You know, I'm just going to start on this E. Okay, so E is on the 7th fret, and the next note is G. Okay, so where's the next G at? The next G is here on the 10th fret. Okay, that's only 3 half steps higher. That is a minor third interval. Okay, and then looking at the interval between the E and the B. Okay, here's your E on the 7th fret A string. Here's your B, 7th fret E string. That's a perfect fifth away. That's a minor chord. Okay, E, G, which is a minor third away, B, which is a perfect fifth. Okay, E and B is a perfect fifth. Okay, so that's another minor chord. Let's look at the 4 chord. All right, the 4 chord in this particular key, starting on the 4th scale degree, F, A, C. What is that? Okay, yeah, let's start on this F here. All right, we're here on the 8th fret of the A string. There's the F, and then your closest A is found up here on the 12th fret. So F, A. Okay, that's separated by an interval of a major third. That's 4 frets higher. Okay, it's 4 half steps higher. So F and A, major third, and then the F and the C. Okay, let's look at that interval. The F is A string, 8th fret, E string, 8th fret is the C. Okay, so you have a root, major third interval, perfect fifth, F, A, C. That is a major chord. Okay, so your 1 chord is major, your 2 chord is minor, your 3 chord is minor, your 4 chord is major. All right. I'm just going to go through and do it all for the key of C, and then I'm going to move a little quicker. All right. So the 5 chord. The 5 chord is a G. All right. G, B, D. All right. So let's come back down here for now. We'll start on this G. G, 3rd fret E string, G, okay, B, B is up here, G and B, separated by the interval of a major third, okay, 4 half steps higher, alright, and then the G and the D, the note D right here, 5th fret A string, separated by an interval of a perfect fifth. G, B, D is therefore a major chord, alright. Let's look at the 6th chord. The 6th chord is A, C, E. Starting on this A, 5th fret, low E string, C, 8th fret, E string, okay, that's a minor third interval, and then A and E, okay, E is right here, that's a perfect fifth interval, root, minor third, perfect fifth, that's a minor chord. Now you have your final chord, your 7th chord, alright? So we're going to start on the B. Let's go to the B. Okay, the next note is D. Okay, so you can go to this D here. Okay, that's the interval of a minor third, 3 frets away. And then the other chord, or the other note, is an F. Okay, so that is, you can go to the next string up, and then only one fret up. There's your F. Okay, so that's not a perfect fifth interval anymore, right? A perfect fifth looks like this, but this interval is only here. B is on the 7th fret E string, F is on the 8th fret A string, okay? Okay, so it has a minor third interval, but it has a diminished fifth interval, okay? Diminished fifth is one less than perfect fifth, all right? So this particular triad is known as a diminished triad, all right? So you have your 7 chords, you have your 7 triads, which we created from the 7 notes of the C major scale. And these are all completely in key to the key of C major, okay? We're not using any out of key notes, and we have thus now just created 7 diatonic triads, okay? Your 1 chord is major, your 2 chord is minor, your 3 chord is minor, your 4 chord is major, your 5 chord is major, your 6 chord was minor, your 7 chord was a diminished triad. So we just did that for the key of C major. You can do that same thing for any of the 12 keys. Look at the 7 notes of the particular scale for whatever key you happen to be in. Okay, you can do the same thing. You start on your note, pick every other note in order to create the chord, do that on each of the 7 scale degrees, and the results are always going to be the same in that the 1 chord is always going to be major, the 2 chord is always going to be minor, 3 is always going to be minor, 4 and 5 are always going to be major, 6 is always going to be minor, and 7 is always going to be a diminished triad. That's going to be the same for all 12 keys, okay? So an easier way to remember it is just remember 1, 4, 5 is major, 2, 3, 6 is minor, all right? 1, 4, 5 is major, 2, 3, 6 is minor. And then you have your oddball 7, 1, which is that diminished triad. Alright, so as you have probably already seen in my other videos, you can take the circle of fifths and you can use that as a reference tool to help you out in determining which diatonic chords belong to which key. Okay, so the circle of fifths nicely organizes things for you such that the first 6 diatonic chords for any of the 12 keys are arranged like so. Alright, so we just did the key of C major. We determined our 7 diatonic chords, but the circle of fifths groups the first 6 of them together. Okay, so as you can see, we have our C major here, that's our 1 chord. We have our D minor here, 2 chord, E minor 3 chord, F major 4 chord, G major 5 chord, A minor 6 chord. Okay, so your first 6 diatonic chords, the 3 majors and the 3 minor chords, which are found in every key, or any key has 3 majors and 3 minors in it, are grouped together like so. Alright? Then you have the oddball 7 chord, which does not fall into the grouping of 6, but at least you have the first 6 for you, okay? So you can play any of these chords and you can play them in any order and it's always going to sound good, okay? Because everything is completely in the key of C major. So let's say I want to write a song in the key of C major. So that was just using all 6 of those chords in any random order and everything sounded good. Everything was completely diatonic to the key of C major. And then I can throw in that other chord too, that 7 chord, but I'm going to show you that in the next part. Alright, so in the previous section we just looked at the diatonic triads. Now we're going to take a look at diatonic 7th chords. Alright, 7th chords contain 4 notes, okay? Now, the triad portion of each of these 7 diatonic chords is still going to be the same. The 1, 4, and 5 chord is still going to be major. The 2, 3, and 6 chord is still going to be a minor triad. The 7 chord is still going to be a diminished triad. However, once we go ahead and add this 4th note onto each chord, that's going to determine what type of 7th chord it is. Okay, so each chord is either going to be a major 7th chord, a minor 7th chord, a dominant 7th chord, or in the case of the weird, excuse me, in the case of the weird 7 chord, it's going to be a either a fully diminished chord or a half diminished chord. And I'll just give you the answer. It's going to be a half diminished chord, okay? But we're going to go through the same process and figure all this stuff out. So I'm going to use a different key here just to show you that the process works for any of the 12 keys. Okay, so let's take the key of G major, for example. G major has the notes G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and then it starts over. Okay, so playing the notes of the G major scale, you have, starting on the note G, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Okay, so you know the notes of the G major scale are G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. This is the particular key signature for this particular key, okay? The key signature is that it has 1 sharp, and that 1 sharp is an F sharp. Each of the 12 keys has its own unique set of 7 notes, alright? So we're in the key of G major here. Let's come up with our 7 diatonic chords. The process is exactly the same. You simply take your starting note, okay, from each of the 7 scale degrees, and you just count every other note, alright? So starting on the first note, which is G. You have G, then you skip, and you get to the B, okay? Then you skip a note, and then you get to the D, okay? Then you skip a note, and you have F sharp, alright? So that is your first diatonic 7th chord. You can do the same thing for the 2 chords, starting on the 2nd scale degree, okay? You have A, skip a note, C, skip a note, okay, E, skip a note, then you have G, alright? That's your 2nd chord. Your 3rd chord, same thing, okay? Start on the, did I say 2nd? I meant 3rd. 3rd, you start on the B, okay? B, skip a note, D, skip a note, F sharp, skip a note, A, alright? You can do this for all 7 chords, okay? Same process. Now let's just analyze what each of these 7 chords is, okay? Instead of going through all 7 and counting every other note, you can do that yourself, okay? So the 1 chord, G, B, D, F sharp. Let's first look at the triad, okay? G is right here, 3rd fret, okay? Your B is up here, 7th fret. That's the interval of a major 3rd, okay? Your D is up here, 5th fret. That's the interval of a perfect 5th. So as you already know, your 1 chord is going to have a major triad. That's going to apply to every single key, all right? So let's look at the interval between the G and the F sharp. Here's the G, and F sharp is 1 note behind it, okay? So whenever your 7th is located 1 fret under your original starting note, or 1 half step less than your original starting note, that is considered to be a major 7th interval. Alright? So, GBD makes a major triad. The G and the F sharp, that is known as a major 7th interval. Not a 7th interval, not a minor 7th interval. It's a major 7th interval. MAG 7. Maj 7 is talking about the 7th degree. The maj doesn't have anything to do with the triad, okay? Maj 7th means that the 7th is a major 7th degree, 1 half step lower than the root, okay? So the 1 chord is a major 7th chord. G major 7th is your 1 chord. Let's take a look at the 2 chord, okay? The 2 chord, A, C, E, G, alright? So, A, 5th fret, low E string. C is the 8th fret of the E string, okay? That is the interval of a minor 3rd. Okay, then look at the interval between the A and the E. A is 5th fret, E is on the next string higher, 2 frets up. That is the interval of a perfect 5th. But you already knew that. You already know that the 2 chord is a minor triad no matter what key you're working in, okay? Now, let's look at the interval between the A and the G, okay? The A and the G, okay, that's one whole step lower. Okay, so if it's one whole step lower, that is considered to be the interval of a seventh. Not a major seventh, it's a seventh. Alright? So you take a minor triad, and then you take a seventh, and the result is A minor seventh. Alright? So your 1 chord is a G major seventh, your 2 chord is an A minor seventh. Alright? Let's look at our 3 chord. 3 chord, B, D, F sharp, A. Alright? The interval between the B and the D is a minor third. The interval between the B and the F sharp here is a perfect fifth. Alright, so you already know that the 3 chord is going to be a minor triad. It's the same for every key. The interval between the B and the A is a seventh. Okay? It's a whole step lower. Okay? So a minor triad plus the interval of a seventh makes a minor seventh chord. So your 1 chord is a major 7, your 2 chord is a minor 7, your 3 chord is a minor 7. Let's look at the 4 chord. The 4 chord is C, E, G, B. Alright? So C, right here, go to the E, interval of a major third, C and the G have the interval of a perfect fifth. Okay? So it's a major triad, as you already know. And then the C, and then going to the B is 1/2 step lower. Okay, so that is the interval of a major seventh. A major seventh is 1/2 step lower than the root. Alright? C, E, G, and B makes a major seventh chord. So your 1 chord is a major 7, your 2 chord is a minor 7, your 3 chord is a minor 7, your 4 chord is a major 7. Let's look at the 5 chord. The 5 chord is D, F sharp, A, and C. Alright? So let's go to the A string here. D, okay, and then you go to the F sharp here, which is the 9th fret. Okay, so the interval between the D and the F sharp is a major third. The interval between the D and the A is a perfect fifth. You already know that that's a major triad. The interval between the D and the C is a seventh. Alright, that's 1 whole step apart, or 2 frets lower than the root. Okay, so D, F sharp, A, and then that 7th interval, what does that make? That makes a D7 chord. Alright, or otherwise known as D dominant 7. Okay, so you have a major 7, you have a minor 7, you have a minor 7, you have a major 7, you have a dominant 7, otherwise known as just a 7th chord. Okay, so let's look at our 6th chord. Our 6th chord is E, G, B, D. Alright, so let's start on this E here, on the A string. There's your E. Your G is here on the 10th fret. That's a minor third interval. Your B is either here, same fret on the E string, or you can go 2 frets up and then to the next higher string. So here's your B, okay, interval of a perfect fifth. So minor third interval, perfect fifth interval. It's a minor triad. Let's look at the adding in that D note. Okay, so here's the note D, the 7th. That is the interval of a 7th, separated by 2 frets, okay, or 2/2 steps lower. E, G, B, D is an E minor 7 chord. Alright? So, as you can see for the first 6 chords, just the triads alone, your 1, 4, 5 triads are major, your 2, 3, 6 triads are minor, okay? But then when you go ahead and add the 7ths on, your 1 and 4 chords become major 7th chords, your 2, 3, and 6 chords become minor 7th chords, and your 5 chord becomes a dominant 7th chord, okay? Otherwise known as just a 7th chord. So let's go ahead and look at our oddball 7 chord here, okay? The 7 chord is F sharp, alright? F sharp, A, C, and E. Okay, so we could come down here and use this F sharp. So F sharp to the A is the interval of a minor third. F sharp to the C is an interval of that diminished fifth. Okay, so our triad is diminished for a 7 chord, as always, for any key. Now we go ahead and we add in our 7th, okay? The 7th is the E, okay, which is the open string. So F sharp to the open string is the interval of a 7th, okay? 2 half steps away. So when you have a diminished triad and you have the interval of a 7th, that is known as a half diminished chord, all right? A fully diminished chord simply lowers the 7th 1 additional step, all right? So that's just a little information about diminished chords. But a diminished triad plus the degree of a 7th is a half diminished. A diminished triad plus the interval of a double flatted 7th, meaning it would be even 1 half step lower yet, that would be a fully diminished chord, all right? So in a major key, your 7 chord is always going to be half diminished, all right? Again, for the 7ths, the same rule applies for all 12 keys, all 12 keys. You can look at these keys from the major perspective, you can look at these keys from the minor perspective. The same 7 diatonic chords are going to be present, and that's just the way it is. All right, and again, you can use your circle of fifths to help you remember these things. The first 6 diatonic chords for any key are always grouped together like so. So right now we're in the key of G major. So your 6 diatonic chords, your 3 on the outer circle, which are G, C, and D, your 1, 4, and 5 chords, are your 3 major chords. The 3 on the inner circle, which are E minor, A minor, and B minor, are your 3 minor chords, okay? Unfortunately, the F sharp half diminished chord is not nicely grouped into that grouping of 6, but at least you have your first 6 grouped together like that. All right, so it's up to you to remember which chord gets which type of 7th. All right, so after you start to study this stuff for a little bit, you start to remember it pretty easily. Okay, your 2, 3, and 6 chords are all minor 7th chords. That's easy enough. All right, your 1 chord and 4 chord are always major 7th chords. And your 5 chord is always going to be a dominant 7th chord. Alright, so whatever it takes to remember those particular rules, that applies to any key. Any of the 12 keys, same rules apply. 7th chord is always a half diminished chord. So those are your 7 diatonic triads, and you can go ahead and you can write chord progressions using those 7 chords, okay? You can just use the triads, or you can use the 7th chords, and everything is going to be strictly in the key of whatever you're working in. So right now we're in the key of G major, so let's go ahead and try and write some kind of a diatonic chord progression using major chords, minor chords, and these 7th variations. Okay, so right there I used all 7 diatonic chords in the key of G major, and the chord progression was strictly diatonic. I did not use any out of key chords. I did not use any non-diatonic chords, okay? Strictly diatonic to the key of G major. Reason being is because only notes of the key of G major were used in the chords that I used, all right? So that's about wraps it up for the lesson on diatonic chords and diatonic chord progressions. So hopefully this wasn't too long-winded. Hopefully I didn't bore you. Hopefully you were able to learn something that you didn't already know previously. So if all those things were accomplished, I did my job. So any questions, comments, feel free to hit me up. Thanks for watching.